Hello guys, today we're going to talk about routine. I mentioned it in previous videos, more than once I think, but today I'm going to dive deeper into details of this skill of the players. The routine is this number you see here. In the case of this guy, it's 18.9. The only way for players to increase the routine is by playing matches. The more matches they play, the more routine they get. This routine goes from 0 to 99.9. After a player reaches 99.9, he cannot gain any further routine. Let me show you, for example, a player I have, which has 99.9 routine, which is this goalkeeper. He's the only player I have at the moment in my team with such routine. I had others in the past, but at the moment, only him. Okay, so from now, he doesn't get any further routine. Even if he plays more matches, he doesn't get more routine. Let me show you one more example. This is a defender I have. He also has a high routine, but not as high as the previous one. He has 64.1, this guy. The amount of routine gained by the players depends on the type of match they play. If it's a match of the National League or the National Cup, they get zero point 0.1 point of routine, one decimal, okay, of routine. If it's a match for the secondary international competition, he gets zero point 0.2. In the case of the Americas, which is the place where I play, the secondary competition would be FATA Copa Americana. Okay? If it's the primary international competition, they get zero point 0.3. In my case in the Americas, it's the FATA Liberty. But it will depend. If you play in Europe, you have different competitions. In Asia, you have other competitions. Okay? And for the national team competitions, the players get zero point 0.4 per match. Friendlies from any kind, friendlies for the team, friendlies for the national team, don't give any routine for the players. Okay? If you want to know more about these competitions, maybe you don't know what I mean by primary and secondary international competitions, check the video you see in the card now, in which I explain these competitions. Then you have a clearer view about it. In order for a player to get routine, he just needs to enter the game. He only needs to participate. There is no minimum time he needs to stay on the field to get the routine. When they first implemented this routine effect, at the very beginning, the player needed to stay on the field for at least 10 minutes to gain something. Nowadays, no. If the player enters the match, he will receive routine. In order to assess the routine effect, to know exactly how much the player is increasing his skills due to the routine, there is an equation that we can use. Let me show you. It's this one. Okay. Doesn't look so nice. For me, actually, it looks, but if you don't like math, it may look very confusing. But don't worry, you don't need to know that. Okay, it's just for you to know where the routine effect comes from. There is a table I created to summarize the influence of each new decimal of routine based on this equation. Let me show you. This is the table I created. You see that here I list the routines, each new decimal, and here I applied the formula I just showed you. And here is just I just rounded to two decimal places. Okay. So for example, the first guy we analyzed, the attacker, he had 18.9 routine. So if I go here to 18.9, here. So this guy will get 1.45 extra in each of his skills, okay? And if I go to the goalkeeper, he had 99.9, so he gets 2.91 plus on his skills, okay? And the last one, the defender, he had 64.1, and with this amount of routine, he gets 2.68, okay? You notice that after a certain, as the routine grows, the effect of it doesn't grow in the same intensity. For example, you see that from the defender, 2.68 to the goalkeeper is not so big, such a big difference. See, 2.68 to 2.91. But at the beginning, for example, a guy who has zero, if you compare to a guy who has just, let's say, 11.6, it's 1 point difference already in the skills. See? So the more routine the guy gets, the less percentage he grows in the skill. I hope it makes sense to you. You can also find this equation in that same page I showed you in the previous video when I talk about stamina, the announcement page where they announced some changes, including the stamina, okay, that I mentioned in the previous video. The routine effect was also introduced here. Then they presented this formula. Okay, if you want the link to check this page and read it all, it's a note post from 2016. But just ask me in the comments and I can send you the link. Okay. And here I take the opportunity to tell you something I forgot to mention before is that the routine increases all the skills of the player except for the stamina. The routine has no effect on the stamina of the player, okay? Doesn't matter if the player has zero routine or 99.9, the stamina will not change. Let me go back to one of the player's profile, this one. And there are some scripts that make it possible for you to see the effect of the routine on the player skills without having to use an equation or create a table. Okay? If you don't know what scripts are, or if you know but it is not something so clear to you, you can check a video I made a while ago about this topic. It will be here in the cards for you. In my case, I use a couple of different scripts that give me this information about the routine. One of them you can see here in the players page, but honestly, I don't use this script on this page for that. On this page, I use this script mostly for this tool here, this information, and for the sell to agent price too. Okay, for the routine, I don't use. But you can see that the script shows here the effect of the routine in the player skills. However, I noticed that this is not accurate. It's close, but it's not accurate. If you remember, when we check the table, with this amount of routine, this player should get 1.45, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, 1.45 extra in each skill. But in the script, they are adding 1.91. Okay, it's close, but it's not correct. 1.91 here. Yeah, in this one, they added 1.45. This one is correct, but the other is no. And they added in stamina too. So I don't recommend you check the effect of routine through this script. Okay, I didn't investigated why this mistake occurs because it was not the focus of the video. But in the future, I plan to make a video about this script only, as it has a lot of useful information. Then I can search about this inaccuracy and explain to you why it happens. I actually have a video not talking about this script, but talking about the information you see here. I talk about R5, agent price, these buttons here. If you want to check to understand more about these things, if you have questions, check the video you see in the cards now. Then you can see the explanation. Let's see one more example of the script working. For example, for this guy, the goalkeeper. As we checked in the table, the bonus should be 2.91. And here for this one, for example, you see that he's getting 3.27. It's also wrong. See, this one he's getting in stamina, he shouldn't get. And for the others, also 2.27. Okay, the same happens with the defender. If you check, they should be getting 2.68, but it's not what we see here. However, there is other script which I also use, and in this one you can trust. It's in the player comparison page. If I compare, for example, this defender with the attack that I had before. Let me find him. Yeah, he's here. In this page, I also talk about this page in the video I put in the cards. If you want to get to understand more, go back there. Here, I have a script that allows me to add the routine bonus to this comparison, okay? Here you see the comparison without routine, but if I add, then you see here, this player, for example, on my left side, he had 18 of on pace, and he gets 1.2.68 more, which is the value we got from the table, remember? And the other one, he had, for example, 17 in heading, he gets 1.45 and goes to 18.45. Okay, so this script calculates the routine effect correctly. Then if you want to know, you can use the script on this page. You notice that here they are not adding any bonus to stamina 2, as it should be. That's all for this video, guys. If you have questions, write them down below. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe. See you soon.